Stephen, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for having me, and it's nice to be here. And nice to know that so many people here are interested in, sounds like reincarnation, past lives, trance work, hypnotherapy, things like that. So a lot of that is what I have dedicated years for, decades, and I put a lot of case studies into these books. Little show and tell right there. But this is volume 2. And kind of like the bread and butter of any type of readings. And I'm an astrologer also, as well as tarot card reader. And the bread and butter stuff, of course, is money and love. Those are the two big things that people are looking at. Well, if I really showed my Scorpio side, I would have said something beyond love.
That's all combined.
So with the idea that when people would like to find out about past lives, they're looking for karmic patterns, cause and effect, wondering many times, what about my career, my finances, how am I going to make it here in this earth, in this world? And then the other, of course, is, love, relationships, someone special in their life. And I'd have to say that there's been a few times where a woman would come to me, probably, middle-aged, who would say, could you please find out when my beloved will come into my life so I can divorce my husband? So some of the different patterns that shows up, since again so many people are interested in relationships, I have not only from the inspiration from Edgar Cayce and him talking about various types of karmic relationships, the types of relationships. One's, of course, heard of soulmates, as well as twin souls, as well as karmic relationships. And then there's a little bit of confusion about which is which, and are these like different patterns, or or when is my beloved going to show up? Back to that other lady. So anyway, from this book, this is looking at this particular theme. And as I go along, it's kind of like story time. And I'll be reading from this particular chapter. And if there are a couple of different ideas or perspectives or questions or something that's not quite clear, feel free to ask about that, okay? I start with this quote by Khalil Gibran. And think not that you can direct the course of love, for love, if it finds you worthy, directs your course. That's from the prophet. It is the stuff of poetry, songs, and legends, a love sublime. We long for a partner, a mate. We seek love, romance, and happiness. There are millions of stories of how people came together, fell in love, and married. They manifested a home, had children, enjoyed their families. Then came old age, infirmities, and eventual death. For many people, that is the end of the story, but not here. After the release, there are reunions, celebrations, and plans for the next round, with an important amount of circumspection. Who will we share the journey with next time? Now, remember, this is after death and you're in the spirit world, oftentimes in consultation with your spirit guide, maybe what are called the elders, the council, and telephone calls. And some of the other questions How can we burn off some of this karma? How shall we pair off or connect? Which roles shall we play and in which countries? And how will we meet for the next cycle? And so much of this is forecast and planned in the spirit world. There are many ways to connect. In some cultures, marriages are arranged by families and religions. In other places, individuals strike out on their own. Where to get advice? Who are you going to call? I remember talking to an ex-Catholic priest who also perceived a higher order and could no longer be contained within the old vows. He left the church and married. He found another way. He talked about one of his priestly duties, namely advising couples on marriage. He had a sense of humor and could laugh about it later. Can you imagine, he said, what did I know? I was celibate and I knew nothing. And I was supposed to counsel people about sex and intimacy. He laughed, how incredible. Yes, the things that humans do. Back to getting serious though. Yes, the things that humans and institutions do. There are rules of etiquette, strategies of approach, traditions to follow, and then in the end, God has other plans. Since love or romance is the number one question of my clients, money, career is number two, I have paid more attention to this theme of love over the decades. My slant, of course, is striving to know what the grand plan might be. Thanks to the insights derived from thousands of sessions, I've been able to outline some basic themes and tendencies on this subject. In my first volume, I went into some detail about the various types of relationships us humans might be inclined to find, based on the spiritual dynamics and lessons wished. In short, there are, besides hybrids going their own ways, the following main categories. I had mentioned hybrids with James here recently, those souls who have had other experiences on different planets or other dimensions, and then they come here in a thin veneer of humanity. And many of those hybrid souls, who can, by the way, be part of the relationship patterns I'm about to talk about, but a lot of them find the earth a bit harsh, and they have a tough time being down here. Some of them might get depressed and even commit suicide. It's just a little bit difficult on this third dimensional plane. So the different categories, the different groupings here, soulmates. Of course, that's what most people are thinking about or wanting to have. Then we have soul companions. Then there are twin souls. Then we have guides, teachers, and coaches. Remembering that each of these types, each of these categories can be a love relationship with someone. And then we have something quite interesting, assignments for the lost ones. Then we have karmic relationships. And finally, communal or tribal companions. And these, over a period of many decades, having seen many, many people, the different categories of relationships. And so when people come to me and say, oh, I'm waiting for my soulmate, maybe that's coming, but maybe you're going to be pulling in something else. Another quote from Tom Baudet. They say a person needs just 3 things to be truly happy in this world. So, someone to love, something to do, and something to hope for. And I begin with soulmates. Romances are made in heaven, truly. For the most part, there are agreements and contracts arranged in spirit before we are born. I also believe that there are contingency plans and the second, third, and fourth options for partners. We have free will, and so we can choose differently than planned. However, if we stay tuned, listen to our gut or to our hunches, intuition, we will probably be better off in the long run. I present some of the highlights from these various ways to connect. I begin with the most compelling and the type of relationship that most of my clients wish to meet, to experience: soulmates. These souls are close partners in spirit, in the same soul group or family. In astronomy, imagine two stars revolving around each other, the dyad stars, dual stars. Some people expect such a duet, two souls who repeatedly incarnate with each other. And there are indeed millions of these pairs here on Earth. These romantic soulmates plan to meet upon the earth while still souls in spirit. Imagine also a tight group, a soul family, and there are pairs planning there. I know of a foursome vibrating in a song dimension, two pairs. One couple has chosen to incarnate multiple times upon the earth together, and their dual companions in spirit, part of the choir, chose not to incarnate here. The earth adventurers report back to their vibrational pair, and all grow in understanding. Whilst in spirit, preparing for the next life, most all souls, future pairs, go to a preparation place where they choose and practice giving signals when they shall meet each other. These outward signs can take many forms, such as meeting during a holiday or event with colors, certain colors, things that people are wearing, music, or other significant signs and locations. When these partners see or hear these triggers in the flesh, it is almost immediately recognized. Ah, there you are.
Mhm.
And another quote, I love quotes. Love is that condition in which the happiness of another person is essential to your own. Robert Heinlein. Some people are surprised to learn that there may be 2 or 3 soulmates for them in spirit, and thus for them here on earth. Some of my clients are relieved to know that there isn't just one special partner or soulmate. This is true, especially if a person lost a great love and is now widowed. After this loss, the worry was that that was it. Finito. Just one love life over. For some, this could be true, but for many, there may be several soulmates out there. Oftentimes, an intimate relationship is an excellent way to learn, for one opens up on deeper levels. Spirit is all for that. Some bereaved souls have come to see me. I've helped many in trance meet their beloved who had passed away. These loving partners often encourage the one left behind to move on, love again, and find happiness with someone new. There were a few partners who told us in a session that they were sending the next one. And how generous and loving.
Robert Heinlein.
How about that?
Yeah, I want that quote again, actually. It doesn't have to be right now.
Okay.
He's a sci-fi guy.
Yeah.
Stranger in a Strange Land.
Yeah.
I had a woman, and I go into a little bit more detail here in the book, a client of mine who was married, and she came to me and she was wondering, probably in her 40s, if she might be perhaps gay. Because her best friend, a woman, she was very attracted to, and not as much with her husband of 20 years. And so, open to all questions, all possibilities, I took her into a trance, and then she found out that she had been with her soulmate, her best friend now, is her soulmate.
Mm.
And they were together as two women in France in the 1920s. And this time around, recognizing that it was more than just a kind of a time out as soulmates, because they had done that already. In fact, a few times already. You know, it's like, okay, I love you, and it's like, oh, where okay, yeah. I got to a point, say, let's try something new. Let's have other experiences, because we're always here to grow. That's the biggest thing. Soul wants us to grow, to experience, to expand. And so once she saw that, she says, oh, okay, well, I totally understand why my best friend I feel so much for, and I have to agree, or let's say accept the fact that is not going to be, a homosexual relationship, but that here we are as two girlfriends loving each other. Hey, Jeffrey.
Thanks.
So, since we do enjoy quotes, I've got a nice one here from Khalil Gibran, from the Prophet. Let there be spaces in your togetherness, and let the winds of the heavens dance between you. Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls. Fill each other's cup, but drink not from one cup. Give one another of your bread, but eat not from the same loaf. Sing and dance together and be joyous, but let each one of you be alone, even as the strings of a lute are alone, though they quiver with the same music. Give your hearts, but not into each other's keeping, for only the hand of life can contain your hearts. And stand together, yet not too near together, for the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow. I've used that when I've performed marriages.
Yeah.
So another type of relationship outside of soulmates. Oh, let me say one more thing about the soulmates. I had this one other client who was probably in her late 30s, and she was kind of disappointed. She's had, various relationships, and they didn't seem to last so long. And so she was just wondering, okay, where's my soulmate? And whenever people come to me, they have a list of key people in their life. Do you do that also in your work? Yeah. So, mother, father, siblings, and so forth, just to find out, did they play other roles in past lives? And what is the dynamic today? Okay. So she had her little sister, her baby sister, and she was very close to her. And that sister had moved out of the country, was living in a foreign country, and she really missed her. So while that was happening, she was still, coming back to her own woes and frustrations, that she could not find a good partner, a soulmate that she was looking for. And in the course of our session, we found out that it was her sister. that was her soulmate.
Mm.
And that was why she felt so strongly for her. But it was that sisterly love, but that depth, that wonder was only found with her and not with these other dating partners. And then we asked, well, why did you two do that? Yeah. And they said, well, 3 lives past, we had been really close as partners. And so we already did it. It's time for other lessons. So this category is called soul companions. I asked my impending clients to bring me a list of significant people in their lives, like parents, siblings, partners, the usual suspects. Family members stick around for a lifetime. Blood is thicker than water, they say. Some people remain with us for decades, for lifetimes. We all recognize that other acquaintances and friends come and go. Soul companions are often best friends, colleagues, and long-term connections, even family members. One can even marry a soul companion. They have much in common, enjoy each other's company, and they may share similar hobbies and pursuits. They are often on the same or similar wavelength. Now and then, a client is surprised to find that someone not on their radar, not on their list, was in fact an important person for their development. In one session, my client realized that there were workers in her company who were actually soul companions, and she was the role model or teacher for them. Here on the earth plane, she was told that she should be nicer to them. She intuitively knew this and was very helpful and kind. They came to her for advice. I bring this up here for it's interesting to recognize that sometimes those on the periphery of our lives might be more significant than we imagine. Be on the lookout for these companions when joining groups, clubs, and associations. Some of our close connections, our compadres, are soul companions. They will make good sounding boards, and they need your input and friendship too. They may challenge you. We need perspective and contrast. I guess it's time for another quote. The cosmos works by harmony of tensions, like the lyre and bow. From the strain of binding opposites comes harmony. And that's from Heraclitus in the 6th century. So those companion souls are not as intense, not as like such a magnetic draw as soul mates, but we know them, we're comfortable around them, we just like get each other. And that's why they're so comfortable. Then we have something that many people find a little bit confusing, and it's called twin souls. And Edgar Cayce talked about twin souls too. When one soul chooses to incarnate into 2 bodies, personalities, during the same time, this is a twin soul experience. As we have free will.
I don't think I ever understood that.
Oh, you get it now?
I don't know.
Oh, I'll
That's
continue.
complex.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. We have free will and curiosity. Our souls are free to do this. We send from a portion of our energy for incarnations, for instance, 30 or 40% to animate this particular earth vessel. So if you can just send, let's say, 30% of your soul energy to animate this particular body, well, you've got another 70%. up there. And so that can be used.
Mm.
I remember I was talking with this one woman who told me about when she was like 6 years old. Prior to having this illness at 6 years old, she was full of energy. She was a firecracker. She would just go, go, go to the point where her parents were really upset. She was just full of it. Then she had a fever at age 6 to the point where she was in bed. She almost died, but then she made it through. And afterwards, her personality had changed. She did not have that drive. She did not have that verve. And we found out in our session that she overjudged how much energy she could pull in. And it was too much, and it was burning her little body out. And so they had to withdraw some of that essential energy from the body, something like 10%, so that then she could live a semi-normal life. She still had a lot of energy, by the way, but it was too much. I found that very interesting. Remember that Michael Newton had told us that one cannot take over another body. You've heard of walk-ins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He didn't believe in walk-ins because he said during the growth process, the soul, which is sometimes bored, by the way, by the fetus because it's so slow,
Oh.
the soul does a vibrational alignment with the young body so that it is truly a match-up pair. And therefore, after that, with this concept or idea of a walk-in, that if someone gets to the point where they want to do a suicide and they're finished and they just like I've had it with this, another soul can say, oh well, if you're going to be leaving, why don't I come in and take over? That's the concept. And again, it's not my experience. I've never seen that. And Michael Newton said he doesn't believe it. I had several tranced clients tell me that some part of their soul incarnated somewhere else right now. This is rare in my experience, this twin soul thing. Sometimes the soul wants to work off some karma, and this seems to be a very efficient way to do it. Their motto, double the work, get it done twice as fast. Here's a quote from Emily Bronte. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. I recall a client who incarnated as twins. He went back to Switzerland in the 1700s, where he, or rather it, was born as fraternal twins, a boy and a girl. His soul described this as an experiment. As children, the kids were best buddies, friends, and siblings. Things got off balance after puberty, however. The female twin was courted by a nice partner, got married, had a family, and was content. The male part missed his sister and sort of drifted. He did not meet and marry someone special. He was off track, traveled around, seeming to search for something or someone, and was rather lonely. He died in his 30s. His twin soul joined him again in spirit some 30 years later. Heathcliff, yes. The spirit, the soul admitted that this was an experiment and he or it would not do it again. A rather advanced soul told me that his twin soul was 20 years younger than himself and living in another country. He thought it would be great to meet her, but felt that she needed a little time to mature before their lives could cross. I imagine that it would be a fabulous meeting. So that's a relatively rare type of incarnation. Then we have guides, teachers, and coaches. Thank goodness for teachers and guides. We all need them, and within these pages, I've described quite a few. Most often, they are more evolved souls, and they may play roles for shorter or longer periods of time in our lives. Each person has a soul guide, a highly evolved spirit who most often is not incarnated. However, I have a few instances of these guides who indeed would accompany the pupil down here on the earth. I remember a young woman who was only on her second earth incarnation. It was very interesting because I booked, 2 sessions, one on one day, and the next one would go on the following day. The first day usually is to go into past lives, and the second day typically is to go into the spirit life between lives. Well, in our first session, she went to her past life and did not do very well. It was a drifter, confused, a young man. He made mistakes. He had his money stolen. I mean, he was a bit of a mess, And then we said, okay, well, that can happen in one life. Let's go and find another one. That's it. That was his first life, and my client, was having her second life. And I go, wow, that's interesting.
Where you been?
Spirit world.
Hmm.
Yeah. Besides the spirit world, there's also young souls. I mean, young.
Yeah.
It hasn't been around that long. I think whenever you find any places in the space in which there are stars being born, those are typically also where nurseries are, soul nurseries, and souls are being born.
Huh.
So the same person here who got off track. So her spirit guide decided she needed closer attention and incarnated as her grandmother. This older role model was so popular with her fellow schoolmates that most of the kids in her elementary classes would come over to hang out with grandma too. She was definitely the most popular person in the village. One of the interesting things about this category of assignments is that each one of us can play this role. We may meet someone in need, or a friendly or lonely child, or someone at an event. Our inner urge, conscience, is the soul's prodding. If we follow it, is to talk to this person, to offer advice, or simply to be kind. When I'm aware of this at the time, I thank Spirit for using me. Yes, I want to be of service down here. Every now and then I meet some advanced souls who are in the spirit world, the equivalent of nannies or scout leaders, or nursery or elementary school teachers. On the earth, they are drawn to similar careers and positions, and they contribute positively to many lives. That is their calling. I think I would pronounce Blaise Pascal.
Yeah.
The heart has its reasons which reason knows not. Isn't that clever?
Mhm.
Yeah. The heart has its reasons which reason knows not. So to get the attention, to make the link so that people will learn, the love is the glue that binds the people together. And through that love, they've got your attention, and now the class begins. Then we have something that people perhaps may have heard about or not. This is the assignments for the lost ones. There are times and assignments when guides, teachers, and coaches are not enough. There are stuck or lost souls who cannot or will not get back on track. They have forgotten their spiritual natures and their divine origins. A coach may be ignored or rejected. These entities need help. And this brings the assignments for the lost ones. According to the Bible, the daughters of men were mated with light workers, more advanced souls, assignments from on high. The second wave of souls who came to earth to aid the lost ones. You may recall that from the Edgar Cayce readings, where there was at first a very curious bunch of souls, and they looked down upon the earth and probably other planets too, and said, wow, I wonder what it's like to be a fish, to fly like a bird. You know, it looks very interesting down there. And so then as souls, you know, they can go inside things, right? So they then entered into these earthly forms, these creatures below, and then they got to learn that, you know. This is Edgar Cayce, by the way. And but then the energy was so dense, so coarse, so primitive, that they got lost in the emotions of it and forgot their spiritual nature. And they became stuck, lost, into the earth plane. And then came the second wave of souls that says, oh my goodness, we have to get some way to get their attention, to bring them up and out. And again, that is through relationships and love. By the way, from the Bible, it says, and it came to pass that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them as wives. That's in Genesis 6:2. And that is in reference to this story that I told you. So there are millions of lost souls down here who forgot their divinity. They got caught up in instinctual reactions and baser emotions, or they fell into selfishness and the addictions of the flesh. How to break this cycle? Erring personalities, hungry ghosts, and negative personalities are cosmically teamed up with caring souls. There's a good chance that you have met such a pair. Have you ever met a kind and patient person partnered with a loud and obnoxious cad?
Yes.
Any examples like that?
Yeah.
I've seen a few.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Why are they together? Usually I say, poor woman. Too often these lost or contrary souls are chose to be born as men, for they willfully gravitate to aggressiveness and positions of power. They want to be the bosses, sometimes callous and brutal, even predatory. Of course, I have seen the genders reversed in this pairing and tutoring. In my experience, however, usually it is the fairer sex that warms the hard-hearted macho dudes, bringing lessons of patience, humility, and kindness. Thus, there is a path for these wayward souls who forgot the big picture to join, to connect, and mate, and through love, they are coaxed and coached to a more humane level. Personal evolution is seen here akin to interventions. And thank goodness there are assignments caring souls for the lost ones. This takes time, lots of time, perhaps many lives. A mission of this type of love one could call saving souls. Perhaps you have met such odd pairs yourself. I've met several. It's time for another quote. Marriage is a great institution, but I'm not ready for an institution. Mae West.
There you go.
Then there are karmic relationships. There are millions of karmic relationships playing out on Earth. A bully in a past life will be a domestic victim today. And the perpetrator? The past life victim.
Ooh.
When strong emotions between two people are expressed, there is probably karma and a contract. In relationships, there are attractions and repulsions. Tensions pull and twist, storms blow. I do declare, if more people understood the spiritual agreements made in heaven, there would be much less animosity in separations and divorces. Many karmic relationships are set for specific times or length of connection, which can be concluded earlier or later, depending on the progress and lessons learned. I've come across many pairs who planned only a set number of years together. Penance and patience. There are forgotten agreements, debts to pay, and lessons to be learned. Sometimes the romantic contract ends as soon as the woman is pregnant. Sometimes it ends when a child is 3 or 4. Sometimes the passion fades on the 7th anniversary. Debt paid, now on to new assignments. Here in our temporal, physical perspectives, there may be some gnashing of teeth. Many err, thinking that things did not go according to plan. Whose plan? More karma accrues by how we handle these disappointments and challenges. Buddha warned us not to get attached to certain outcomes. Many of the tales within these pages are karmic connections. This, by the way, I've seen several times with postpartum depression. And prior to me getting into this kind of work, I was asking, isn't the mother supposed to be overjoyed that this little, baby is finally here in her life? And several times it was this soul who, suddenly is like she's confronted with, was an enemy in a past life. And suddenly, that energy, and it's not usually a conscious thing because of course it's a little baby, but it's like, oh my goodness. Oh, and then I did that, and oh my boy, was that a mess. I'm now depressed.
Before you go on, Stephen,
Mhm.
I'd like to invite, we're running out of time. We only have a few minutes left.
Oh, okay.
We can go over, but
Yeah.
I want to give this opportunity for people to respond to you or ask a question. And I'm going to
Yeah.
put the group on gallery so people can be seen. Right? Does anybody have a question or a comment for Stephen before he continues? Carol has a comment.
I know it's no longer fashionable, but I'm thinking therapy could be, a way of attuning into what you really expected so that you don't have to go through all that pain.
True, good. And of course, as a hypnotherapist,
Oh,
do that type of therapy, but then not in a classic, talk therapy,
yeah.
but in
well,
a trance.
however, Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how a lot of these things get resolved. In fact, even to the point where, oh, now I know the story. Now I understand why. And may this be ended.
Yeah.
May I be
And if you
forgiven,
come up
etc.
with past life stuff,
Yeah,
so much the better.
you're right. Exactly. Yeah, true.
Why would somebody from the 5th dimension?
Interestingly enough, Edgar Casey talked about 8 dimensions,
Okay,
and each of the planets are connected to different dimensions. You're familiar with what he said about the 3rd dimension and what
Yeah.
they are?
Yeah.
Earth dimension, third. Okay. And of course, that's time,
right.
space,
And love.
and patience.
Oh, patience. Right.
And patience as a dimension. Isn't that interesting? So it can be from the 5th dimension or from someone from another advanced planet, having had an experience over there as a soul, died, then entered into an earth body here. And oftentimes it is curiosity. It is a desire to learn. It is a desire to express and to grow. And so all of these things, like we could even say for ourselves, why do we move to a different place? Why do we study a particular subject? It's the same thing in the spirit realm. Curiosity, what is that like over there? And so a lot of it is formed or pushed by such interests like that. And then sometimes well, there's some strange stories sometimes, but I did meet this runaway who was being chased by some oversouls, and he did something bad, and they didn't know exactly what it was, but he was hiding inside of an earth body. And I have never come across that again. It was just one time. I thought it was very interesting. But
Who was
he
gonna get him?
he was just hiding from these other souls from another dimension who, if they had recognized him, they were going to take him to jail or something.
We'll take them to the far reaches of hell.
Maybe, or back to the fifth dimension. Yeah.
Stephen, speaking of, in regard to your children, if you have a child that was perhaps estranged in some manner, by talking to the individual, can you access that, the intent maybe of that sibling?
Yes, and that's actually a very interesting thing that quite a few people would ask about. Like, I get along with my oldest child, but my youngest child, we fight all the time, right? I don't know why, but then when you find out the stories, like you were in competition in France in the 1700s, and you had a duel, there's some tension there. You're bringing that back. So that's kind of the backstory with some things. The opposite I've also found, where a mother-son today were married in a past life. And then there was like these strange feelings that should not happen, but when you think about the past experience, it was totally fine in that other life. So levels of tension and attraction and feelings, in these, behind these skins.
Right, any other question or comment?
Yeah, I was wondering if you find a large percentage of people who reincarnated together to be married, or is it there has to be some beginning point where you meet?
Right, that's true. And yes, there are many who do come down here to meet specific souls that they know really well. They could be the soulmates that I had talked about before, and they are delighted to meet that soul and to have a loving relationship. And it oftentimes starts in spirit, and having beyond our regular sense of time. We can talk about thousands of years together on this higher plane, and in a parallel, like we start off young, small, grow in experience, and so forth. In the spirit world too, there are young souls, middle souls, older souls, and there is growth and schools and education and experiences on the soul level. And then kind of like for a graduate level type of work, they say, okay, we've learned these many different things on other dimensions or in practice or in a university equivalent in spirit. And they say, let's put it into practice. Let's incarnate together and really work on a couple of these different themes that we've been studying.
All right, anything else before, can you go back and finish what you were going to?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I can wind things up here too. Okay. I talked about the karmic relationships, and remembering that karma can be positive or negative. Karma is basically action. And so one could have a karmic relationship, but it's really quite a positive thing. So, but those are karmic relationships too. But people who had been bitter enemies in one life could then come back together in the same family in the present life. Hopefully learning those lessons, but thinking about a magnetic force or an energy, if there is a strong reaction, positive or negative, then very likely you're going to have another karmic relationship with that person. If it gets to the point where it's neutral and like, well, have a good day, have a good life, I don't wish you harm, if it gets neutral, then there's no more karma. But with karma, positive or negative, you will be pulled together, usually in relationships.
Well, there could be karma on a higher level. Maybe just the fact that it's a calm relationship is a higher evolution of storm and drang, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
But in that sense, it would probably be more of like a platonic relationship because it's
right.
no big passion, no energy. And that's a relationship. Yeah.
Well, maybe it's more subtle than that.
Ovid, a Roman poet, said, "Ah me, love cannot be cured by herbs." Then we have the communal or tribal companions as a type of soul relationship. There are so many options. These communal or tribal companions are interesting and explain certain romantic attachments and multiple marriages here on Earth. As above, so below. So imagine a star cluster, such as the Pleiades in the heavens. Some aggregate souls come to Earth together, a group incarnation. They live in spirit as a tight group, sometimes like a multi-celled organism. Could this explain some teams, sects, or tight groups, or cults? They are never alone there in spirit and often find it rather lonely and separate as isolated humans here as individuals. They're not used to that. Even if they get married, there is a feeling like, oh, well, we're now part of a duo, but like here in this group, like we're all together here. Now it's feeling more like home. So they just need other energies around them. This is the group souls, group oriented. Some of these multi-oriented types get pulled in societal or religious restrictions of monogamy, and indeed follow this tradition about 4 or 5 or 6 times. Monogamous. Serial monogamy is the result of these butterflies. Otherwise, these and similar souls are attracted to loose tribal connections on Earth and could be attracted to several people at the same time, such as in a polyamory relationship or extended intimate partnerships or open relationships. Many societies are not so comfortable with such lifestyles, and these individuals, if not discreet, are labeled, judged, and even harassed. There will be a time in the future that they, like homosexuals in more liberal lands, will be recognized as yet another sexual orientation group that should be accepted and given equal rights. My last quote. Just as a cautious businessman avoids investing all his capital in one concern, so wisdom would probably admonish us also not to anticipate all our happiness from one quarter alone. Sigmund Freud. So again, the varieties of.
It's his book.
Oh, that's your book.
That's my book.
Oh, you're brilliant, Stephen. Oh, I have your copy.
Yeah.
Really.
So there's the big pictures of love, relationship, and different types of relationships. And as we meet people, we might say, oh, like, have you been married? Or, tell me about your family or your siblings and so forth. And we have our earth stories, but behind it can be really interesting, multi-leveled centuries past complex stories that make our relationships down here much, much richer. And so I wish you all happy relationships.
So to summarize it, if we're attracted to someone, we've got some energy of a soul relationship, and there's something to work out.
Exactly. Right,
Yes.
right.
And the way to work it out is to forgive, love, do the best you can to help the other person, and let it simmer.
Exactly, right. And a variation of that, there are, I talked about young souls, middle souls, older souls. There are these community parent energies, community parent types of souls. And they usually are attracted to larger groups of people, and they give counsel, they give advice, they help, with issues and problems and so forth, like a good parent would for the family. But this is a community parent. And automatically, this type of person will attract two main types of people. One would be the young soul who is naturally attracted to the parent-child. And then the other parent, another community parent connected to that soul. Obviously, when we get the young soul, the childish soul connected to the community parent soul, it's going to be lopsided. And one is going to be having to take care of the issues and the problems and the dramas sometimes in this person, even though it's a natural magnetic attraction between the two. And I've had to tell this to quite a few different people. When, since, establishing that they are already an older soul, that they're a parental soul, that they're a community parent, there will be these young ones that come to you. You're not supposed to be in a relationship with them. The connection, the assignment is to aid them in their way, but don't get involved. But do find another community parent, and then it's two parents getting together, and you can do a lot more positive contributions in the society.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah.